Hi, I'm Cody from Duo Security, now part of Cisco. In this video, we are going to show you how to install Duo Network Gateway and configure it to protect a web application while using Duo Single Sign-On as our primary authentication source. Before watching this video, please be sure to read the documentation for Duo Network Gateway located at duo.com/docs/DNG. Duo Network Gateway, or DNG, allows your users to securely access your on-premises websites and web applications and SSH servers without having to worry about managing VPN credentials, while also adding login security with the Duo prompt. With DNG, your users can access your internal web applications from any device, using any browser, from anywhere in the world, without having to install or configure remote access software on their device. Users first authenticate to DNG and approve a two-factor authentication request before they may access your protected services. Session awareness minimizes repeated MFA prompts as users access additional services and hosts via your gateway. Duo Network Gateway is available on Duo Beyond Edition and provides granular access control per web application, each set of SSH servers, and user groups. Using DNG, you can specify different policies to make sure that only trusted users and endpoints are able to access your internal services. Prerequisites. Before you deploy the DNG, make sure you have the necessary prerequisites in place. DNG requires a SAML 2.0 identity provider, or IDP, to use as its primary authentication source. You can use Duo Single Sign-On or Duo Access Gateway as your SAML IDP, or a third-party SAML provider such as ADFS. In this video example, we will be using Duo Single Sign-On as our SAML IDP. To learn more about Duo Single Sign-On, reference the documentation at duo.com/docs/SSO. You will also need to deploy a physical or virtual modern 64-bit Linux server in your perimeter network, or DMZ. The size of your DNG server for web applications should relate to the request per second, or RPS, of traffic that you expect to use with the Duo Network Gateway. The minimum system requirements for a host that will serve 400 requests per second are 1 core processor, 2 GB of RAM, and 20 GB of disk space. Your system must also run a supported Linux operating system. Supported distributions are CentOS, Fedora, Ubuntu, Debian, and SUSE Enterprise Linux. In this video, we will use CentOS 7. In addition, you must open ports 80 and 443 in the perimeter firewall for HTTP and HTTPS external traffic to and from the server. Port 8443 will be used for administrative purposes. Restrict traffic to this port to only authorized networks. Allow the Duo Network Gateway server to communicate with your internal web applications via HTTP or HTTPS using the same ports as your internal application. Further, you must create an Internet Resolvable Fully Qualified DNS entry for external access. You must also purchase an SSL certificate for your server from a commercial certificate authority, using the fully qualified DNS name of your Duo Network Gateway server as the common name. You may also use a wildcard SSL certificate. If you do not want to purchase a certificate, you will have the opportunity to generate a free, automatically renewing certificate from Let's Encrypt later in this network gateway setup. Install Docker. Install Docker on your server. Docker is a tool that allows Duo Network Gateway to run inside its own self-contained environment called a container on top of your host operating system. Open a web browser and go to duo.com/docs/DNG. Use the left sidebar to navigate to Prerequisites. Install Docker. There are commands you can copy and paste from the documentation to make setup easier. Log into your Duo Network Gateway server locally or through SSH with a user that has sudo permissions. Note that anytime you use the sudo command, you may be prompted to enter your password. Docker requires a 64-bit operating system. Verify your installation of CentOS is 64-bit by running the uname command from the documentation. The output should contain x86_64 if the operating system is 64-bit. Next, install yum-utils on your server using the command from step 3 of the Install Docker section of the documentation. Add the Docker repository to your Yum repository by copying the commands from step 4. Ensure that the output is similar to the output shown in the documentation. Make sure your existing packages are up to date by running the command provided in step 5. After seeing an output similar to metadata cache created, install wget using the command from step 6. Then, install Docker using the command from step 7. Enable Docker by running the command from step 8. Start the Docker daemon by running the command from step 9. Check that Docker has installed properly by using the command from step 10. You should see an output similar to the code block shown in step 10. Using the command from step 11, add your user to the Docker group so that Docker commands don't require sudo. Next, log out of your DNG server and log back in for the group changes to take effect. Check that Docker is functioning without using sudo by typing docker ps. You should see an output similar to what you received after entering the sudo docker ps command. Install Docker Compose. Docker Compose is a tool that was developed to help define and share multi-container applications. Begin by downloading Docker Compose using the wget command provided in step 1 of the Install Docker Compose section of the documentation. Then, change the permissions on Docker Compose to allow you to execute the file using the command from step 2. Move Docker Compose to your local bin folder using the command from step 3. Then, verify Docker Compose is working by using the command from step 4. You should see output indicating the version and build of Docker Compose you are running. Next, install Duo Network Gateway on your server. Scroll down to the Install Duo Network Gateway section of the documentation. Download the Duo Network Gateway YAML file and save it to your server by using the wget command in step 1. Make sure you save this file in a persistent directory location for further use. It will be required later when deploying, updating, or interacting with your DNG server. Note the actual file name that was saved. You will need this in the next step. Copy the command from step 2 and paste it into your terminal to instruct Docker Compose to download DNG and install it. Specify the name of the YAML file you previously downloaded in the last step of the command. Note that your YAML file name may differ from the name of the file used in the command in the documentation. The download and installation process may take a few minutes. Verify that your DNG containers are running by running the command docker ps. You should see an output indicating all 3 containers with a status of up, similar to the output shown in step 3 of the documentation. Next, let's configure our Duo Network Gateway. The DNG can be configured using the admin UI or by using scripted configuration, which allows you to configure Duo Network Gateway with a configuration file. In this video, we will configure DNG using the admin UI. From an internal network, open a browser and navigate to the HTTPS URL of your network gateway with :8443 appended at the end. Your browser will warn you about an untrusted certificate. Dismiss the warning and continue. If you would like to verify the certificate displayed by your browser is the same one loaded by the DNG, please refer to this knowledge base article. The first page of the setup screen will ask you to create a password for the DNG admin console. Create a password that meets the requirements detailed on the page. Click Save and Continue. On the next page, in the admin email field, enter the email address of an administrator who can be contacted if there is an issue. Currently, this email address will only be contacted if there are issues renewing the automatically generated certificates. In the hostname field, enter the fully qualified external domain name, or FQDN, of the server. This should be FQDN addressable to the internet. You can also click the Already Have a Duo Network Gateway Configuration File, Import It Now link to restore settings from a backup. You can then supply your own SSL certificate or automatically generate and renew a free SSL certificate using Let's Encrypt. In this video, we will provide our own certificate. If the Duo Network Gateway is behind a load balancer, check the box next to This Duo Network Gateway is accessed through load balancers. In the Load Balancer IP addresses field, you can specify the IP addresses of your load balancer in a variety of ways. For more information on configuring your DNG behind load balancers, please refer to the documentation. Click the Save Settings button. Saving your configuration redirects you to the Duo Network Gateway admin console. Next, configure your DNG SAML authentication source. In this video, we will use Duo Single Sign-On, which we have already configured with a working authentication source. Log in to the Duo admin panel, and in the left sidebar, click Applications. Click Protect an Application, and type Duo Network Gateway in the search field. Locate the entry for Duo Network Gateway with a protection type of 2FA with SSO hosted by Duo Single Sign-On. Click Protect. You will be taken to your DNG Applications Properties page. Please keep this page open as we will need the information in the metadata section later in the configuration. Under Service Provider, enter the fully qualified external DNS of your Duo Network Gateway server in the domain name field. DNG uses the username attribute when authenticating. If you are using a non-standard username attribute for your authentication source, check the Custom Attributes box and enter the name of the attribute you wish to use instead. Additionally, you can adjust the name for your SAML application by typing in a new name under Settings in the Name field. Note that Duo Push users will see this application name when approving transactions. When you are finished with adjusting your additional settings, click Save. Return to the DNG Admin Console homepage and click the Authentication Source link under Step 2. Scroll down to the Configure SAML Identity Provider section of the page. Next, copy the entity ID from the Duo Admin Panel metadata section and paste it into the Duo Network Gateway Entity ID or Issuer ID field. Then, copy the Single Sign-On URL from the Duo Admin Panel metadata section and paste it into the DNG Assertion Consumer Service URL or Single Sign-On URL field. Copy the Single Logout URL from the same metadata section and paste it into the DNG Single Logout URL field. Then, in the Duo Admin panel, under Downloads, click Download Certificate to download the Duo SSO Signing Certificate. In the DNG Admin console, click the Choose File button and select the certificate. Leave Username Attribute unchecked. Enforced Email Domain is an optional setting in the DNG Admin panel. Enabling this will allow you to enforce that only email addresses within a certain domain are allowed to log into the Duo Network Gateway. For this example, we will not click the Enforced Email Domain box. After entering all of the required information, click Save Settings. With our Duo Network Gateway now configured, let's use it to protect an application. Duo Network Gateway allows your users to access internal web applications without having to join a VPN. Users will be able to access the internal web application after verifying their identity with a first factor and Duo MFA. Prerequisites for protecting an application. Before proceeding with this part of the setup, ensure that DNG is able to communicate locally with the application. In addition, create or update the public DNS record of your application to point to the DNG server. Also, you must obtain an SSL certificate for your application from a commercial CA using the fully qualified external DNS name of your application as the common name. You can also generate a free, automatically renewing certificate from Let's Encrypt during setup. If the application you will be protecting is already communicating over HTTPS, you will also need to obtain the base64 encoded X.509 formatted version of the application certificate bundle, including the issuing certificates and the root certificate. You may also use a wildcard SSL certificate. Log in to the Duo Admin panel if you are not logged in already. Click Applications. Then click Protect an Application. In the search bar, type Duo Network Gateway and locate the 2FA only entry for Duo Network Gateway-Web Application. Click Protect to configure the application and note the details section of the Properties page. You will need the client ID, client secret, and API hostname from this page during the next step of setup. You can also scroll down the page and adjust additional settings for your new DNG application at this time, or come back and change the application's policies and settings after you finish setup. If you do update any settings, click the Save button when done. When you install the latest version of Duo Network Gateway, you are ready to use Duo's next generation authentication experience, the Universal Prompt, once it's released. When you create a new DNG web application in the Duo admin panel, the Universal Prompt section shows the status as waiting on Duo. When the Universal Prompt becomes available, you'll return here to activate it for users of the application. The status will change to New Prompt Ready, and you'll see the control here for turning it on or off. Until then, your users continue to experience the current Duo prompt. For more information on the Universal Prompt, please see the documentation. Return to the Duo Network Gateway admin console. On the left side of the page, click Applications. On the Applications page, click Add New and select Web Application from the drop-down options. You will be taken to a new page. Under Configure 2FA, copy and paste the client ID, client secret, and API hostname from the DNG web application page you just created in the Duo admin panel. The Enable Frameless setting is optional. However, the box should be checked if you plan to enable the Duo Universal Prompt. Next, scroll down to the External Website Settings section. In the External URL field, enter the public-facing external URL of the web application DNG is protecting. This URL can be the same as the internal application URL, but is not required. Ensure that this hostname resolves to the external IP address of your Duo Network Gateway server. You can then provide your own certificate or automatically generate and renew a free certificate using Let's Encrypt. In this video, we will provide our own certificate. Scroll down to the Internal Website Settings section. In the Internal URL field, enter the internal URL or IP address of the web application Duo Network Gateway is protecting. If the internal application is communicating on a port other than 80 or 443, specify the port using a semicolon. Your internal application can communicate over HTTP or HTTPS. Uploading a certificate in the internal SSL certificate field is only required if the internal application is communicating over HTTPS. Provide a base64-encoded X.509 version of the root CA certificate that is at the top of the chain for the internal application certificate. The internal SSL validation drop-down options include the internal and external URLs you entered on this page. Select the one that matches the subject hostname in the internal SSL certificate used by the internal application. After filling out the required fields, click Add Application. After successfully adding your application to DNG, update the public DNS record of your external URL to point to the DNG server. Now test your Duo Network Gateway configuration. Navigate to the external URL of the application you configured in DNG. You are redirected to the SAML IDP you configured for use with DNG. The Duo Authentication prompt appears after successful primary authentication. Using this prompt, users can enroll in Duo or complete two-factor authentication. Since this user has already been enrolled in Duo, you can select Send Me a Push, Call Me, or enter a passcode. Select Send Me a Push to send a push notification to your smartphone. On your phone, open the notification, tap the green button to accept, and you are granted access to your internal web application. DNG does not pass any primary login credential information to the internal application, so you need to provide your username and password to the internal application separately. You are now able to log into your application as if you were inside your network. You have successfully published your internal application with Duo Network Gateway. You can now remove any external firewall rules providing direct access to your internal application and allow all authorized users to access the application through Duo Network Gateway. Nice work!